I'll leave it at that. Okay, happy birthday, Belinda Mitchell, tomorrow. Glad you're here and hope that you have a wonderful day. And we have two that are celebrating anniversaries. Adam Williams, who is in our Outlaw Club, he and his wife Brooke, on November the 30th, and then Mr. Rick Parker. Where is he at? I just saw him. There you go. He and Miss Julianne are celebrating December the 1st. Make sure you remember Rick. Any other family or Rotary information we need to share at this time? Hope everyone had a wonderful Thanksgiving and enjoyed your lunch today. And I'll turn it back over to President Greg.
Introduction of guests, visiting Rotarians, Mark Trustee.
Hey.
Did I get it?
You got it right.
Wow.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. We're happy to welcome our guests and visiting Rotarians today. When I call your name, would you please stand and remain standing until all visitors are recognized? Our first guest, Mr. Ronnie Motley, guest to Keith McAnulty. And then a visiting Rotarian we have with us today, Walt Ellis, from our Tuesday Club. Walt, stand, thank you. Any other visitors that I've missed so far? Awesome. Well, thank you for visiting with Dothan Rotary Club today. Hope y'all have a great day.
Ambassador on Morgan England. The number of points 130,650. Actually, 1,360. The last four digits are 7625. 7625. Sheila Azar has an announcement.
So it's time for us coming up soon, December the 19th, to have our annual meeting. And so on behalf of the club, I want to express appreciation to all of you that are currently serving and for those who have agreed to serve and are nominees. So I'm going to read aloud a list of names of officers and directors for the 23-24 Rotary year. That just sounds crazy, doesn't it? And when I call your name, please stand. For President, Josh Chapman. President-elect, Rick Ryford. Vice President, Alan Richards. And then 3 of the following 6 nominees will serve on the board of directors. So our nominees are John Brown, Blake Daughtry, Margaret Futch, Wes Grant, Keith McAnulty, and Cal Whaley. Are there any nominations from the floor? If not, I'm going to read these again on December the 5th and December the 19th, and we will vote on December the 19th. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheila. Well, that's a good slate of potential officers. Jason Rudd has an announcement for us.
Hey, everybody. This year, we have the Salvation Army Angel Tree gifts. You had on your badge a list. There is an additional, what I call a direction sheet. I'll be at the badges on your way out. Be sure you can get one of those. It's the detail of what to do. In addition, DHR this year, instead of doing gifts, they have an agency that is going to fulfill 100% of their Christmas gift wish for their children. So they have asked us to do what's called luggage of love. Many of you had an optional sheet in your, with your badge. There's 3 options on that luggage of love sheet, and you'll bring those to the meeting either next week or you can bring them to the Rotary meeting, which will be Tuesday the following week at the Peanut Fest, when I guess we'll talk about that in just a moment. In addition, I will be here, not this Monday, but the next Monday. If you do by chance want to go ahead and drop it off, I'll be here to meet you around lunchtime. I'll just be hanging out front, so we can accept those there. The third list was provided from the Dothan Boys and Girls Club, and it was a smaller sheet of paper. And if your name, we don't have all of the names or the wish lists, but I will email you that within 24 hours. So you can either bring it this coming Monday, the second Monday, or on Tuesday at the Rotary meeting for Senior Day out at the fairgrounds. Any questions? All right, thanks, y'all.
Donna Tomley has an announcement.
Good afternoon. I was hoping to have your schedules for bell ringers for Salvation Army. Had a little hiccup with the dates and times, but please be watching your email this afternoon. I hope I have it for you then if you'd like to sign up to ring the bell for the Salvation Army. We'll have an opportunity at Hobby Lobby and also Sam's this year. So please watch your email. Sorry, I don't have that for you today. Thank you.
I have found that trying to be president of Rotary results in drowning in paper. And so I got some people to help me in my office, and we're doing everything on my iPad, and it makes me extraordinarily nervous. So if you see me hold my iPad up to my face, which meant the screen went blank, that's what that would be about. All right, we have some Paul Harris Plus recognition today. Paul Harris recognition has been decorating our Rotary Foundation's supporters for many years. It's a proud tradition that honors the memory of our former past Rotary International president and founder, Paul Harris. I believe he would be deeply moved to see all that Rotarians and the friends of our foundation have done and continue to do in the name of his beloved organization. In order to be honored as a Paul Harris Fellow, someone must contribute at least a sum of $1,000 to the foundation's annual fund, Polio Plus, or an approved foundation grant. These funds can be used to honor others while being applied to the amazing work that has distinguished our Rotary International Foundation as an organization that provides hope, health, peace around the world. Becoming a Paul Harris Fellow is a tremendous accomplishment and honor multiplying that generosity multiplies the community impact made with these contributions. This work is vital to the children, families, and communities who benefit. Only when people's basic needs are met can they pursue the larger element of human life, including conflict resolution, community building, and peace. Paul Harris Fellows, in a very tangible way, provide stepping stones to a more harmonious world. Today, we have several Paul Harris Plus presentations and honorees. If they would come forward, they are Mr. Bruce McNeil, George Flowers, come forward, Archie Solomon, and Michael Mack. George is a +5 Paul Harris Fellow, Bruce +6, Michael +2, and Archie Solomon +2. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for your contribution to this organization.
All
Archie. Michael, right there. George.
I don't want to get confused with yours.
That would be awful, wouldn't it?
Wait, can we get a picture?
Robert Ferguson will introduce our speaker today.
Tenise Owens is our speaker today. She's Executive Vice President and Senior Trust Officer at Troy Bank. She holds a BS degree in accounting from Troy University. Graduated from the Southeastern Trust School from Campbell University and attended the Trust and Financial Services School at Cannon Financial Institute for 3 years. She's a certified trust and financial advisor and has been with the Trust Department for over 43 years. She's a member of Rotary International Troy, Alabama Bankers Association Trust Division. She's a board member of Troy Pike Cultural Arts, the Troy University Planned Giving Council, and she and her husband and 3 sons reside in New Bern. Please welcome Tenise Owens.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate you letting me be your speaker today. And remember, I have an accounting background and a senior trust officer for almost 24 years. I am not a speaker. So hopefully we can get through this together. But first, I want to just pay attention to the presentation because I do have some door prizes and I might be calling on you to answer a question. But first, I would like to just give you a little information about the Trust Department at Troy Bank because we have a unique story to tell. And you might not know our ownership structure at Troy Bank. Troy Bank and Trust was formed in 1906, and one of the co-founders of the bank was Governor Charles Henderson. He did serve a time as he was president and CEO of the bank. Well, when he died in 1937, his will or his estate actually owned 51.12% of Troy Bank and Trust stock. His will, he didn't have any children, but his will created a charitable perpetual trust with the stipulation that the stock can never be sold. So that is one reason we're over $1.4 billion community bank and we're still around. We will always be around because we cannot be bought or sold. So our ownership structure, number one shareholder of Troy Bank and Trust is the Charles Henderson Charitable Trust. Now, what that trust did, according to his terms of his document, for 20 years, it went through an accumulation period. The income was reinvested back into principal, and it just grew and grew. Well, after the accumulation period, then it went to the educational purpose period of time, which was another 20 years. And he was just a great man that had such a vision in the 1930s. He had the income of the trust to go to build school buildings in Pike County and the city of Troy. Hence how you have the Charles Henderson Middle School, the elementary school, the high school. That was all done by the income from this trust. After that period of time, that 20 years, it went to what we call the medical side of the trust. It built the Charles Henderson Child Health Center, which is located by the hospital in Troy. And it was to take care of pediatric care regardless of the ability to pay. And so the income from the trust, and for now and forever, because it's a perpetual trust, will go to the operation of that center for kids, and no one is turned down at that center for their ability to pay. So that trust right now is over $100 million, and it's doing great things for the work at that center. So Robert knows I'm not a speaker, and he's going to have to pay me back and be my speaker at the Rotary program. So he said no. But I said, what do you want me to talk about? And so we decided to talk about the responsibility of a trustee. And why do we choose that topic? It's because we are seeing, he's seeing in his practice, attorneys and accountants and even bankers, we're seeing individuals named as trustee more now than ever. And someone, if you're doing an estate plan and you're thinking about even naming a trustee, or you might have been named as trustee, the individual serving in that role do not know the risk, the obligations, the liability that is put on that individual serving as the trustee. They're personally liable for what they do in that role. So first, I want to just talk about what is a trust. A trust is a legal entity to hold trust assets. Okay, there's several different types of trust out there. One of the hottest estate planning topics is like a revocable living trust. Everybody wants to create these. Everybody wants to fund them with all your assets to avoid probate. I mean, that's what you hear people are doing it to avoid probate. That works, that's great, all is good, but you got to remember, every asset has to be titled into the trust, or you still might have to go to probate your will to collect an asset or your executive. So when you establish a trust, one, you need to know who's the grantor, who's the creator. Somebody's got to create this thing. So that's called a grantor. Then you've got to name the beneficiary. Okay, the beneficiary is just one that's going to benefit from the trust property. There could be a primary beneficiary and there will be contingent remainder beneficiary. But then you also have got to pick a trustee. So you could, a lot of people in this revocable living trust I talk about, they're the grantor, the creator, they're the beneficiaries, they're the one receiving the benefit of the trust assets, and they're also the trustee. So they're still in control, okay? So they don't like it, they can change it, terminate it, and all that good stuff. But even in that scenario, they've got to name a successor trustee because they cannot serve it if they're not here. So a successor trustee is named, they come into the picture, and they handle the trust even when that person is incompetent or at his death. There has to be a trustee named to finish out the terms of the trust. So a lot of people are naming one sibling or naming one child to serve in that role, or an aunt or uncle, whatever the case might be. And I don't think, because they're thinking that that's an honor, and it is an honor because that person really trusts them to be the trustee. But the liability they have put on that person is unremarkable. And I don't think people are really understanding when they accept this role. Okay, so want to talk real quick about the duties. So one of your duties, if you serve, or if you're talking or thinking about naming an individual, say one of your children to serve in that role, they have to follow the trust terms, whether they like it or not. So they have to deal with the beneficiaries. Too often, individual trustees will refuse to follow the trust terms as a grantor is instructed. The trustee must put their emotions aside to serve. They have to be independent thinking and think about all the trust beneficiaries. A lot of time, a trust document would say income distributions on a quarterly basis, paid out regardless, just pay all the income out. And then principal distribution at the trustee's sole discretion. So everybody knows what interest rates have been for the last, since 2008 or whatever the case might be, very, very low. So a lot of these income trusts, they're not getting enough income to be able to meet their needs. So they're constantly going to the trustee. We get so many principal requests, and because the income is not sufficient. So if you name a child and there's 4 beneficiaries, the other siblings, they're constantly at the doctor's ready, having to go to that child and ask for money. And that trustee is the gatekeeper of the money and to say yes, no, I don't agree with your lifestyle. Well, that trustee is opening itself up for some major lawsuits. Okay, so it's hard to put that responsibility on one person's shoulder to be having to have all these requests coming in. They're going to have to look at the assets of the trust. Is it time to sell to make a distribution? The trust is only $100,000 and they want $60,000 for a brand new vehicle. Does that make sense? No, because it's going to deplete the assets and the purpose of the trust won't be carried out. So that is something to think about in a huge liability. Duty of loyalty and self-dealing when you serve as an individual trustee. One of the most fundamental obligations owed by a fiduciary to the beneficiary's duty of loyalty. You have to be fair and reasonable to all the beneficiaries. I had a trust one time that had 14 beneficiaries. Some beneficiaries were easy to work with, had no problem, some were just a nightmare. That I had to treat every one of them fair. I had to give them enough time, adequate time to come to me. When I had one that big, we went ahead because the trust document allowed it, and we made 14 separate trusts. Because if not, what if one had a medical purpose or medical need that drained the assets from the other 13 beneficiaries? So it can be just an accounting nightmare. Beneficiaries, you as a trustee owe everything to the beneficiary. A beneficiary owes no duties to the trustee. That's $1. Y'all do that here? Another thing that is hard for individuals to do correctly is report information and accounting. We at the bank spend a lot of money on our trust accounting software to help us collect and keep up with our assets. We have to have our assets valued because at any time a beneficiary could request a current holdings. So everything has to be accurate. We also are responsible, you would be too if you're an individual trustee, to do a tax return. You have to give your accountants good information to do that return, and you will be signing that return if all that information is true and correct. So, and a lot of times if the individual, this is what we're seeing on the bank side. If an individual is serving as a trustee, they're going to come into the bank and they're going to open up a checking account in the name of the trust. Then they might go to the bank across the street because there's a CD special. So they're going to go get a CD in the name of the trust at a different bank. Then they're going to go across the street to a brokerage house, and then they're going to set up a, have all their stocks, bonds, funds in that. So there's right there 3 different statements. Then they might own some LLC partnership interest. Then they might have some real estate too that's in the name of the trust. So an individual trustee now has 5 or 6 moving parts that they're going to have to organize, keep accurate records on each transaction to be able to provide to the beneficiary as well as to the accountants to do the tax return. Beneficiaries should not have to ask for information. The trustee, you or if you're thinking about naming an individual, should provide enough information to them. They shouldn't have to be calling the trustee to ask. So that's why you have to keep good, accurate information. Because once information is disclosed to a beneficiary, that is when the statute of limitations begin for the lawsuit. All right. So if you're an individual trustee or you're thinking about naming one and they're not going to keep records, they have that liability over their head. Even if the trust is gone, trust is terminated, could follow them because it was never reported to the beneficiary. Duty to invest prudently. The trustee has the duty to invest prudently, look at, has to produce a investment policy, has to establish investment objectives based on risk factors. The trustee needs to meet with the beneficiaries to see what their cash flow needs are going to be. So an example, and I'll explain this with a true example that we worked in our shop. If the trust document says that only income can be dispersed, what's the trustee going to do with the investment? They're not going to put it all in growth because the beneficiary's only benefit is income. So the investments are going to be oriented toward investment income objectives. But when that income beneficiary dies and the trust is paid out to the remainder beneficiaries, they're going to come back and sue you because you didn't have enough growth in that account to actually have the trust to grow as well. So you have to find that actual mix. Because not only can you get sued by your beneficiaries you're working with today, you will or could be sued by beneficiaries at the end because you didn't do something properly. An example of that is, and sometimes with individuals, they don't have the investment background. They are doing a full-time job, and this is something that is just being given to them, laid on them to have to do. So you better get a good accountant, you better have a good attorney, you better have a good investment advisor to help you if you decide to serve, or if you decide to put this on a loved one of yours. But that does not take away your personal liability. Just because I might use a stockbroker to help me, I am not transferring that liability to that. I still am. I'm the gatekeeper of the funds. I'm in control of whatever assets in that trust, and I'm going to be the one that's going to get sued if something's not right. An example of also an investment, you can watch your concentrations. In 1960, I think it was like 65, we had a trust created. A man died and he left a trust for his wife. He only gave her income rights. She could not get any principal out of this trust, income only. And his son, not her son, his son was actually going to be the remainder beneficiary at her death, right? Simple, easy. They did not like each other. The spouse and the child, of course, did not like each other. So the wife died. She was 103 when she died. So her goal, I think, in life was to outlive the son, and she did. She did. But now, this is a question. Back in the 1960s, what was one stock that most everybody kind of owned if they owned stocks? Who said Coke? All right, Keith, do your job. Give them a prize.
Who said that? Do your job.
Who said it first? Okay, so yes, Coca-Cola. He had a large concentration of Coca-Cola stock. He also, in his trust agreement, the will, he said that his son, the bank would have to consult with the son on the investment decision. So we did not have sole discretion on that. Well, in 1960s, all these years, stock split. I mean, just tons of Coca-Colas, huge concentration. He did not want to sell. Why did he not want to sell? Because of the capital gain tax that the trust was going to have to pay on that if we tried to sell in stock. So every year he would, in writing, he would write to the trustee directing us to hold the stock. And the income beneficiary was okay with it too, because her income, she was getting quite a bit of income off the trust. He died. So when he died, she was, I think, 100. So that scapegoat or that protection we had with him being named was gone. So the bank assumed 100% of the liability of this concentration. So we went to court, but one thing we did is that we talked to the income beneficiary, a 100-year-old lady, and then now that the son died, his 2 children were going to be the recipient of those trust assets when she died. Everybody's like, how long can this lady live? Everybody's like, if we start selling now, she's 100 years old, surely, not me because I love her, but surely she's not going to live much longer. And they would rather take the chance at not selling, not having to pay the capital gains tax, and then she dies and they could be the recipient of stock, and they could sell whenever they wanted to sell. So we went to court, and they had all the beneficiaries to sign off of. We also had the accountant, we had a witness to explain what kind of tax we're going to have to pay if we start liquidating, and her income was going to be hurt as well because of the tax that we were going to have to pay, and we were going to have to reinvest this cash now. And so it was the best solution, and she was 100 years old. I mean, how much longer? She lived to 103. So we were able to get a court order to handle that concentration. With that being said, an individual serving in this role, are they going to understand it? Are they going to know this? Are they going to see the liability? And sometimes an individual servant is awesome. I mean, it's the best thing. You might have a situation where you have a child that's going to be able to handle it. But is that child going to be upset? Is it going to serve with too much emotion? Because he was the one that was here taking care of mom and dad. He was the power of attorney, he paid their bills, but the inheritance was split in trust by all 4 children. So he's the gatekeeper of the money. So he might have hard feelings because he didn't appreciate that his other siblings didn't step up and help. So he could be unfair to the remaining beneficiaries and can get sued. And like I said, a lot of times individuals can serve. They just got to know what they're doing, what they're assuming, the risk. You also need, if you're going to serve, you're going to need to get some personal liability insurance to cover that role. But I think this is pretty interesting, a statement. By law, you now owe a fiduciary duty to both the trust and to the trust beneficiary. Beneficiaries have rights. Trustees have obligations. All right. So that's very important. A fiduciary duty. And when I say fiduciary duty, that is serving as a trustee. I don't care if it's a trustee for mom and dad or a trustee for your sibling. A fiduciary duty is the highest standard of care you can legally owe someone. You will be held accountable for not only what you do, but what you don't do that should have been done. And that's scary. And that's scary. So when you work with a corporate fiduciary, maybe if you're thinking about a corporate fiduciary in the successor role, you know, we're insured. We have the education. That's what we do for a living. We have FDIC, we have the state, we have our internal program looking after us. We have to pay for an external audit. There's so many people that are going to be looking at this trust, not just one trust officer. So that's all that we have. And when an individual, they're kind of on their own, they're going to have to build their own team and just hope that the situation goes accordingly. But it doesn't work out that way. I mean, I tell you, the beneficiaries that I had to deal with, I could write a book. I'm a good friend with a Regions Trust officer. He is retired. He's written 3 books. So it's very, very interesting. Okay, when was the bank formed? Oh, you gotta raise a hand. Now, how am I gonna do? Okay, okay, the lady in the coral shirt. 1956. All right. Okay. I got 2 more prizes. Who was the largest shareholder of Troy Bank and Trust? Charles Henderson Trust. Okay, he gets it right here. How many locations, how many branches in Dothan is there Troy Bank and Trust? 2. Perfect. And I have, my fan club is here. Please stand up. My Dothan people that were not supposed to be here, but I'm glad you are. Y'all made me a little nervous. But thank y'all for coming, and I'll be glad to answer any questions. Okay.
What is considered a suitable percentage for the trustee to charge?
Usually a trustee, I could say in a corporate fiduciary role, usually it's 1% of trust assets, unless, depending on the assets, you know, I've had a trust where I've had to manage a hotel. I've had some trust that has a lot of like a strip mall, and I've had 6 or 7 tenants that I had to work with. So depending on the assets, depending on our work involved, that could be a little different. A larger trust assets or larger trust estate can have a reduced fee schedule as well. But I usually just say 1% with not knowing what's involved. Yes, sir.
Who'd you call them?
Who do I call them? You, yes, sir. I'm sorry,
How do you go, if you form one of these trusts, how do you go about, what is the process for funding the trust? You said you need to fund it, I think.
Okay, so if you're opening up or want to do a revocable trust, then you have to get an attorney. You do an attorney. Don't try to go online and print all these forms and stuff. Go to an attorney. They will do a revocable trust agreement. Then once you have the document in place, then you start collecting and putting your assets. Meaning, if you have a brokerage account, it needs to be titled in the name of the trust. If you have a money market or you have CDs, if that is your goal to avoid probate, you need to start transferring assets into the name of the trust. So if you have real property, you need to have to do deed work. Sometimes I'll see where people do a beneficiary to this trust. So it might not be in their name now, but the beneficiary is the trust. A revocable trust, the IRS doesn't see it as a separate entity. You can use your social security number. You don't have to get a tax ID number. And it can be revoked at any time. So you might do this and it just didn't pan out, or you just don't think your estate plan needed it anymore. You can always change and terminate a revocable trust. Now, a testamentary trust is where you create the trust in your will. So you will say at my death, either my whole estate is to fund a trust, whether the trust, you might have a charitable beneficiary, or you might have you might want to leave money for your grandchildren's education. Or you might not like who your daughter is married to, and you want to make sure he doesn't get a dime of that money that it goes down to the grandchildren. You do that in your will. You might have a special needs child or a family member and you don't want to just cut them out of the inheritance, so benefits get turned off, you can create a special needs trust at your death, all under your will, one document. So that trust doesn't get funded until you're passed away, till the will's probated, estate administration is over, and then the trust will get funded. Yes, sir.
How are trust tax versus individual tax rate?
Okay, if it's a revocable trust, revocable trust, then you can pass the income down through that's why I said you can use your Social Security.
I heard so, yeah.
You just pass it down and you pick up that income as a grantor letter, sometimes the accountants will do, and you put that on your personal tax return. Now, if it is an irrevocable trust and the trust is not, if it's irrevocable trust and it says all income goes out to the beneficiary, that income flows out to the beneficiary that receives it by K1, and they will put it on their tax return. If they do not receive anything that year, then the trust has to pay the income, and the income tax rates are very, very small and high, meaning, what am I trying to say, Robert? The levels where you go up to the next brackets are very, it's best if you can get the income out of the
Right.
trust, it'll be
Very
better to
high,
get it out.
probably.
Very, very high.
Yeah,
Now, estate tax, of course, you know, a lot of people, when I first started here, estate tax was like, all you could shelter was like 650,000, 675, whatever that was. A lot of people were doing estate planning to avoid estate taxes. Now, the limit that you can shelter per person is what, over 11 point something million. So husband and wife can shelter 22 something $million before having to pay the first estate tax. That has cut out a lot of my clientele. They're not having to do estate planning, but that's supposed to reset. I think in January of 2026, I think those exemption amounts are supposed to drop unless something changes in Washington. Not back to 675. I think the numbers have not got back down to about 5 million. So, anybody have any questions? Okay.
Is Charles Henderson gonna win the state championship?
Yes. Yeah, this is our first time in ranked in 5A that we've gone to the state championship. So I hope that happens. I heard Troy win Saturday. We got the Sun Belt going on in Troy Saturday, and I'm glad Roll Tide won Saturday. Any other questions? I mean, has this been helpful, or I need to do
Yes,
something different with my
very
speech?
We appreciate you being here.
I've enjoyed it.
If I'd known what to ask, I would have.
Next time I do talk about power attorneys, because we are seeing so much abuse on the bank side with power attorneys and how people are handling assets and so forth. So maybe I'll be asked back to speak on that. Paul, did you have anything? No?
Yeah, can you talk a little bit about, do you have like a team of advisors or consultants that help you with your department?
Yes, the trust department, we're a small community bank trust department. There's not many around. You actually have a trust officer here, me. I come to the Dothan locations as needed. I am my main office, well, my office is in the main branch in Troy, but we've managed a little over $220 million in our trust department. We have a team, so we have like an investment committee. So we have an investment committee that meets about each trust. We come up with an investment policy, and it's not just one person making those decisions. And we have also another in-house trust committee that meets on like the principal discretionary distributions, because that's the worst. That is the worst to deal with, because you have someone wanting money, begging for money, and I got to be, is this okay or not? Is this not a good expense for the trust? So there's a team that meets on that, so it's just not one person doing that. But we have an outside investment advisor that comes and looks at all our trust accounts once a year too. So they're making sure we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. And then I have an auditor in our shop all the time. It seems like we can't get them out. Not that we're doing anything wrong, but they're just in the way sometimes. Yes, ma'am.
We appreciate you working with our district treasurer, Bob Mills, that's a member of your Troy Trustee.
Oh, go Bob, yes. And he's still an employee of Troy Bank. And he doesn't miss a Rotary program, does not miss one.
How much do you pay Bob to play golf?
Too much. Too much. Way too much. Right. Ronnie,
Nick, you know, I always have something to say.
I know.
But I think one of the things the bank is most proud of is the way we help fund the Charleston Child Health Care Center. And one of the things in that, I think children come from 9 counties around Pike County for that service now.
Yes,
So it's quite an elaborate. They get to do a lot of things at the Child Health Care Center because of the funding that comes through the earnings of the bank.
that is correct. I mean, they would not be able to do what they're doing now if it wasn't for the trust income. And so that's, we kind of take on, we're banking for a higher purpose because our #1 shareholder, largest shareholder is really the children of the Pike County and surrounding counties. They're benefiting from how well we do as a bank. They're benefiting from that. So, and it's just wonderful as an employee, as a customer, that you're not gonna have to be worried about for bank being bought out. So we're here, we'll forever be here. Thanks to Charles Henderson. Thank you, appreciate it.
Lisa, thank you for coming to the program. Couple announcements. 2 weeks from today, we're not meeting here. We will be meeting on Tuesday for the senior citizens lunch that will be at the fairground. And I mentioned to someone today, I made a mistake. Our board meeting is not the second Tuesday or second Monday normally. It is the 19th is our next board meeting. All right, stand with me as we recite our 4-way test. Of the things we think, say, or do.
Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it do goodwill and dedication? Will it be beneficial to all
See ya. Yes, ma'am.